Here's my big deal with VPs in the beginning. You want to create SOPs around the system and not necessarily the SOPs within the system. Does that make sense? So It's like we're creating the system, and then as you guys grow your virtual professional, or as your project manager grows in that role, they'll create the individual SOPs within the system themselves.
Welcome to the Onsite Podcast. We chat with contractors, educators, industry professionals about the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. So without further ado, let's fucking get into it.
What's up? Welcome back to the Onsite Podcast, episode 43. Today we have Doug Mitchell, a familiar face inside of the community and a familiar face on the podcast. Doug's done numerous amounts of different industries, and currently Doug is working with HireVP, who is a virtual assistant placement agency that helps you locate virtual assistants in the Philippines and manages them and helps them kind of get your business running in the right direction. Doug, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, Brandon. You and I have been working together for a couple of years now, and I've always been aligned in terms of values and have had some interesting, I could say the least, transitions, where, we've been able to kind of support each other through those. So thank you for that.
No, that's awesome, man. Well, I'm excited to see you in this new role, with HireVP. I know that Scott, the owner there, is a good friend of yours. You guys have been, in close working relationships for a while. I've had some small conversations with him periodically, and so I'm excited to just learn a little bit more about what is HireVP. What do you guys do over there? Feel free to share a little bit about that, and let's dig into it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'll talk about my journey a little bit first, just to give it some context why I'm even doing this. Right? If you hear about my background, it's like, why is this what he chose to do now?
Because you've done a lot of shit.
It's not necessarily a lot. It's more the consulting made it seem like a lot, right? My background, though, the heavy part of my background was I owned a sales org for 13 years. So we did door-to-door sales for AT&T, DirecTV, Vivint. And towards the end of that journey, I started hiring VAs. And Nica, who is actually producing this episode, was my first ever VA hire. And we've been working together for almost 5 years now. I got lucky. I got a unicorn to start out with, and that's what we call VAs like Nica in the industry. They're unicorns because they can do almost anything, and they can, manage other VAs and then run a business all by themselves, which she's doing in podcast partners, which you employ us to do for you. And so it's been an interesting journey because I have gone through other VA agencies before and had a similar experience to the one that we were talking about before the podcast. And where there's just not a whole lot of support, and it's more of a reactive support, if you will, versus a proactive support, right?
Yeah.
And so luckily, though, I'm built the way I am. I'm a very systems and process guy. I'm big on SOPs. I'm big on systems. I'm big on blaming the system first. And a lot of times with clients that hire VAs, not our clients, but in general, people that hire VAs, they don't have systems in place. And so their VA is more
like the business itself doesn't
the business itself.
Yeah, correct.
Right.
For sure.
Or they don't have personal systems. Their calendar's empty. Somehow they're running a business, And so typically what happens is their VA becomes this just like net of crap, that they're just throwing at them and hoping that they can do. That's typically 90% of the business owner VA relationship is that. Unfortunately, that's not a good relationship. Just being somebody that is just throwing all this extra stuff, really not told how to do it or what the expectations are, right? And so luckily, my background, I manage salespeople, which are way worse than VAs. Door-to-door salespeople. And so I had to literally show them how to do things step by step. So it was very easy because, luckily the VAs that I hired, and I also had Nica, were intuitive, they were critical thinkers, and they were able to solve problems, versus I think a lot of business owners that hire VAs, they don't hire those type. They hire entry level, they're probably paying them $3 to $5 an hour, which what everybody expects VAs to work for, but you're going to get what you pay for, right? And so fortunately, I wasn't in that boat. Nica steered me straight from the very beginning. And so when I hired, I paid well, and I immediately tasked them with building out the SOPs for the role that they were hired for. And so rather than trying to just throw stuff at them and hope they get it done, we developed a system. We developed a process. So my journey has been very strong in virtual assistants for the last 5 years and has transitioned to virtual professionals. And what does that mean? And a lot of people ask that, like VP, VP of sales or something like that, right? No, what that means is it's a virtual professional. The difference is they are hired for a role in the company, and that we develop the SOPs for that role with you. A lot of times, and you know this with a lot of your clients and a lot of the guys in the community, that's not their zone of genius. Their zone of genius is out in the field, on the site. Their zone of genius is running their leadership team that's out in the field, out on site. They typically need someone to bridge the gap when it comes to systems and processes. And so how are we going to place virtual assistants or professionals and not bridge that gap for them?
I mean, like, there's several different types of contractors that are out in the field. I think that the number one that comes to mind is like the guy that's currently working for some guy, right? And then he inflates his ego a little bit. He becomes the number two to that guy.
Yep.
And he's like, you know what? I don't like how he's doing some things within the business. And so I'm going to start my own business. And so then he starts his own business, but he's literally been in the field the entire time. So he has no fucking clue on, how to truly run and manage a business. But somehow, like we were talking about earlier, somehow, they get to a point where they've somehow made it. They somehow got, they made it for 2 years or something, and they've got a couple guys, and they've got a little bit of a pipeline of work, and they've got these opportunities, but they still have no systems. So like, do you guys actually like help them break down, all those systems so you can identify that singular, VP's position?
Yeah. And so what we've been placing a lot is a project coordinator or a project assistant. And so this is basically, you've got your project managers in the field, right? They're in trucks, they're on sites, they're dealing with problems, they're putting out fires, right? And one of the biggest issues that they face is getting back to the office and actually entering all that into the CRM or into JobTread or into Jobber or into whatever the fulfillment CRM is. And then on top of that, one of the issues they face is the touch points with the actual client. These touch points that create the relationship between the client and the company, right? And so our VPs are bridging that gap. Basically, they're coming behind the project manager and saying, hey, in JobTread, we have 50 things that need to happen. They're responsible for all of those 50. The VP is. Okay. So they hold accountability for those 50, and they reach out to the project manager to accomplish each one that the project manager is responsible for, to accomplish each one that the person that sold the job is responsible for, to accomplish each one that the marketing company or the social media company or, all the different people that are involved in that project, they are making sure that they get to the next phase of the project.
You guys probably have like several, contractors that you're already working with. So some of these systems might already be known where they could actually just overlap. So let's say you're working with the guy that inflated his ego, started his own company, ran for a couple of years, and then he comes to you and he's like, dude, I have no systems. Yeah. And you could say, well, are you using JobTread? Let's say, yes, he's using JobTread. You could probably suggest some of the systems that he could implement, because every business is a little bit different, based on their skill and ability, how they operate their business, how they generate their leads. But do you guys suggest, to simplify the process? Because I'm assuming that, bringing on a VA and not having any systems would be, it is for sure. It's not that it would be, it is overwhelming for a lot of different contractors. Even, some of the contractors that we work with that started using VAs with another organization, it just didn't work. And didn't work because they didn't have systems. And so then when they were trying to build the systems, they felt defeated because the process on building the systems wasn't, streamlined enough to meet them where they were at. And so, maybe you guys already, have some systems in place where you can just basically say, hey, this is what we're suggesting you start with. And it probably helps them move forward a little bit more streamlined. I think a lot of the reason why people fail implementing VAs is because they don't have systems. And then they just give up when they realize, oh shit, this is all on me again. Like, I have to figure all these things out. And I think they just give up in that moment.
And it feels like micromanagement. They're hiring someone just to micromanage them, which defeats the purpose, which I totally disagree with. And so what I want to do is, I don't want this to turn into just pitching HireVP. I want your listeners to get some value out of this. Okay. And so the piece of value that I'm going to give them is this. Okay. If you want to create, it doesn't matter for your VA, VP, for your project manager, for your salesperson, it doesn't really matter. If you want to create a system, do this. And this is how we create custom ones at HireVP. So you're going to jump on a call with the other person that, if you're the owner, you're going to jump on a call with the person that's going to be executing the system, right? And you guys are basically going to walk through the process. And so here's my big deal with VPs in the beginning. You want to create SOPs around the system and not necessarily the SOPs within the system. Does that make sense? So it's like, we're creating the system. And then as you guys grow, your virtual professional, or as your project manager grows in that role, they'll create the individual SOPs within the system themselves. And so the easiest way to do that is jump on a recorded call or open up a voice memo on your phone and have the conversation with the project manager. Okay, when we get a build, what's the first thing we do? Okay, what's the second thing we do? So basically you have the whole conversation out loud, which, let's be honest, our clients are better at anyways, of having the conversation out loud, having the give and take conversation. That's why these podcasts are great, because you're going to get way more out of somebody. If Brandon just came to me and said, oh, how do I hire a VA? And then I just had to say how I'm going to hire a VA, or ask for a video on how to hire VAs. You're going to get so much more out of a podcast like this, where Brandon can actually pull things out of me versus trying to just say it all at once, right? And so make sure that you're pulling it out of your project manager, or you're pulling it out of the individual that's executing that current system, or you're having a conversation with the individual that's affected by the system, right? So if you're going to hire, let's just say a foreman, right? Or a job lead or a construction lead, whatever the case is, you're going to hire somebody that's going to be boots on the ground for that particular job. You talk with your project manager about the SOP you want them to follow in the field, right? And so y'all create the initial one together, then you hire that foreman, and then that foreman executes the SOP. And then you meet with that foreman once every 2 weeks or once a month and ask them, how is this working out? Are you actually following? Obviously you can see because of a scorecard that they're following the process, but you need to get the feedback from them, and then you alter and modify the SOP based on that. So again, you have the conversation, and then what we all do now, we drop the transcript into ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And then here's the difference. Most people will go into ChatGPT and say, hey, give me a house system from start to finish for a project manager, right? A checklist, right? And then ChatGPT will give it, the world's, checklist. But the difference you're doing in creating this recording first, pulling the transcript, and then dropping it into ChatGPT is now it's custom for your company. Okay. And we're going to go even further with this. So the owner then drops the transcript into ChatGPT, and then they tell ChatGPT, hey, ask me 10 questions that are going to dial in this system for my company. That's the prompt. And it can be anything to that tune. Like, ask me 10 questions that will make this a more effective SOP for my company. It doesn't really matter. The point is to get ChatGPT to ask you those questions. And then what happens is it will become even more dialed in of an SOP. And then you do your edits from there. So when I do this for clients, we jump on the call. I do the recording. I pull that transcript. I drop it into GPT, and it asks me 5 questions on how to dial it in. And then I go through and this is where it takes it to that next level, right? So I've been operating a sales org for 13 years. One of the hardest things to build SOPs for is salespeople, because they're not compliant. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so if I was able to do that for 13 years, then it becomes very easy for me to do it for other organizations that are paid salaries and benefits and actually like their companies. You know what I'm saying? And so then I consulted for 2 years, right? And so I did integrator work. I did vice president of sales work. I built out sales programs for 20 plus different companies over 2 years. So now I'm bringing my expertise to build into those SOPs as well. And then by the time it's all delivered, you've got a 3-stack of the top 3 SOPs that probably are going to take 20 to 25 hours of the VP's work every week. And then you've got a 3-stack of what I think is incredibly important, which is the first one is going to be becoming a critical thinking partner versus a task doer, which is a training that we put your VP through. And then the secondary piece is going to be managing your schedule. The idea behind this is that their schedule looks like mine at the end of the day, where it's all color coded and they know which department they're working for at any given time, or which division or which action. And they get the client gets a screenshot of their day, right? And then the third thing is how to build an SOP, which if you pull the transcript from this show and you drop it in a GPT and tell me how to make an SOP, it's all built for you already. And now you can hand that out to your team, and they can build the respective systems for their departments,
Hey, we've got an ad here. Make sure to pay attention. What's up, guys? Are you a contractor or business owner looking to take things to the next level? Well, I've got something for you. The Elite Builder Society is a community that helps contractors grow and scale. For $49 a month, you can have access to 20 group coaching calls. Look, you're probably wondering, how am I going to show up to 20 calls, Brandon? That's a lot. And yeah, it is a lot for $49 a month. But every call is recorded so you can watch it at your leisure. But you get the best experience when you're live on the call with us. Okay, at the end of every webinar, there will be a Q&A where you can ask the industry expert questions that you can implement into your business. Look, if you're ready to take things to the next level for $49 a month, go to ebsworks.com and register today. I look forward to seeing you inside the community.
and I talk with my contractors that I work with, like generally the guys who come to work with me have no systems. I mean, they have systems, but they're not documented systems, so they don't exist. You know, none of their employees have signed off on the rules and expectations. It's all just loosely laid out there.
Yeah.
And so, you know, what we start with, because I find that they just quickly get overwhelmed. They're like, well, I'm not writing a big, huge manual book. It's like, what am I going to do with this freaking huge manual book? It's like, you're not necessarily using this manual book every day. It's not like something that you're going to open up and turn to chapter, 25 and identify, do I use my left foot in this situation or my right foot? It's not like that. And I think sometimes people get overwhelmed with it. And so they just don't do it, and I think if you're listening to this and you're like, I have no systems in my business, I challenge you to just go to ChatGPT and rant about the type of business that you own, you run, talk about your clients, talk about your team, talk about your, how you generate leads. If you don't know any of that shit, maybe it's a great opportunity for you just to talk about it. And once you voice that, once you put it down and then you review it back, it's an eye opener. You're like, oh shit. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's what we're doing. And that's a starting point. And so then you use that information to ask ChatGPT to help you build a bit of a framework. So this is how I typically tell people to build their systems out, just on a super entry level process. And I like the adaption to voice transcribed because I do that shit all the time. But I like that you add that in there because it adds it to another level. So if you're trying to figure out like, what are we going to talk about? Right. Because I think if they came to you, Doug, and they wanted, to hire a VA, I think the best contractor, the one that's going to win in this industry, probably got a little bit of a system in place. You should probably just start a little bit just so you get your head going in the right direction. So it's not such a culture shock, but you start by just going into ChatGPT and just rant about your business. Ask it for like 5 or 10 points that you can focus on building systems that you've uncovered that could exist. And then talk about these individual items so you can fixate on trying to, create systems for those. And then when at least you reach out to Doug, you've got something started so that they can actually review that and then go into this and be, more intentional with what you're doing. Because like some systems, they already exist. And I think they just really, really need to be documented, because if they're not documented, they don't exist. And then when you're working with a VA, or a VP, you're hiring a VP, whatever it might be, your success, I think, will be even greater by just having the mind geared towards, onboarding them with some type of system.
Well, and I will say this, nobody ever comes to me prepared. They're just not going to do it. And then that's why they love our service, is because it's turnkey. I'm going to pull it out of you. You gave me, 45 minutes is what we booked for the SOP build call. You gave me 45 minutes and I'm going to use every single minute and I'm going to pull everything I can out of you. I think that's one of the biggest difference makers is I've actually owned businesses. I actually have an exterior cleaning company that I, operate on the side too. You know what I'm saying? And Nica is a big part of that as well. And so like, I understand where these business owners are coming from. And I've been in their shoes before when I operated my sales org or when I was consulting. And I understand the problems that they're dealing with versus if Scott were to just go and hire somebody that, is good at business development and is good at sales, they're not going to have that context, And so that's what I've been enjoying about it is I get to basically every discovery call is a consulting call and every SOP build call is deliverables that I'm delivering to the client, So I get to work in my zone of genius every day. And I think that's
you got to help them transform, and really like you got to help them organize their business. Like it's very similar to coaching, where they start at one point in their business lost and kind of like confused, and you give them a couple things to work on to progress forward, and then you wait a month, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you start to see their progression. I like to always kind of have that like reliving conversation, like let's go back to when we first started talking together and kind of why don't you think about what are some things that you could have done differently now, what I think what I was getting at is that like when somebody hires HireVP or brings on a VA or a VP or whatever it might be, and you work with them directly to build these tactical systems, their business will not look the same. It will look completely different. And most people enter this without thinking about that. Like that's the true reality. Like you're investing your time, energy, and resource in a product like this for an outcome. And the outcome is to transform your business. So tell us a little bit about what does the process look like to hire, the service? What does it cost? Kind of give us a little bit of an overview of all that stuff.
And this is the part I love about it, because when you have a product that's built for volume, you want to kind of smoke screen all that, right? You want to kind of hide it behind a paywall because you need to get somebody on the discovery call. And I'm not about that life. I don't have time to be doing 20 discovery calls a day. And you'll notice a lot of these other VA companies, that's what they do. They do 30-minute discovery calls. Mine are minimum 45. And by the time you get to me, you probably know the monthly, or you have a friend or somebody that you work with or are networked with that has already used our service. You know, we mainly work on referrals and partnerships with communities like yours. And so most of our business is referrals or events. We just did the job trade event, which was fantastic. And that was really cool. But you know, our show rates from that are so much lower than our referrals. So we're very invested in our referrals. But saying all that, it's pretty simple. We do a $19.97 initial fee. Okay, that is for the recruiting and onboarding, and then you never pay that again, whether you hire 1 VP or 3, right? And the reason we charge an upfront fee is, one, to pre-qualify our clients. If you don't have that in the bank account, you're not a good client. That's just not a good idea. You know what I'm saying? To spend your last dollar on that. You know, the second reason is we spend 2 to 3 weeks custom recruiting your virtual professional. We do not have a stable of VAs ready to go for different, you know, assistant roles and stuff like that. We're custom recruiting for the role that you need in your company. And so we run them through cognitive skills and predictive index testing. And if you don't know what predictive index is, it's the only Harvard-backed personality test that's out there right now. It puts you in one of 33 profiles. And so we make sure that the VA profile works well with your profile, and that the VP is also, their profile works well for the position that they're being hired on for. So after we run them through all these filters and everything, then we do fly traps, is what we like to call them. So in the job description, there will be a fly trap, basically message your resume with the words HireVP in the subject line. If they don't do that, then they're not even considered for the position. So there's these little fly traps that we put in place to make sure that they're detail oriented and qualified to work at your company. We get it down to like 20 or 30 people. We do one-on-one interviews. That's where a lot of the testing comes in. And then we set you up with an hour where we bring you the top 3 or 4 candidates within that hour, and you get to interview them yourself. And then you make a selection after that. Once they get hired, your monthly starts. But before that, during the recruiting process, before you get to select from 3 or 4 of the best candidates, that's when you and I are hopping on a call, building out your SOPs. And so we hop on one call. I build out the SOPs. I get your approval on those. And then the recruiting team actually uses those to recruit as well as context for the recruits coming in. And then once you hire, then I'm also going to jump on another call with your actual VP that you're hiring, and I'm going to train them through those SOPs. And that is a call that I don't want you on because I'm going to be running them through executing the process that we built together, and not necessarily all the context and craziness that comes with your company, right? So I'm going to solidify them in, at minimum, executing that process. And then when they come onto your company and they start the first day, then the context comes in, then the extra, you know, tasks come in and stuff like that. But I want to make sure that they're solidified in their 3 SOPs that we built out for them. And then it goes into a monthly fee once they get hired. Right now, we're quoting anywhere from $2,100 to $2,400 a month. There's 2 major factors: the skill set and the role that you're hiring for, and then the negotiation with the actual VA on what they're going to get paid. And that's why that swings one way or the other. 2,100, you're looking at project coordinator, you know, type role. 2,400, you're looking at a high level project coordinator that has experience, you know, let's say 5 years in doing this exact position, or an executive assistant that could run your company while you're on vacation.
These are full-time, obviously. I'm guessing.
These are full-time, and they're all, that monthly fee includes their pay, HireVP's fee. It includes medical benefits. It includes their 13-month bonus. And it also includes an employment contract, because this happens when you hire VAs. Sometimes they like to double dip or triple dip, where they're working for multiple companies, but they're saying they're working for full-time for you. Yeah. So we have a Filipino-based employment contract that can be enforced in the Philippines, that they work for you and they work for you full-time and no other company. And so that's a big part of that monthly fee that you're paying. That also includes up to 2 replacements a year included in that monthly fee. And we only do a 90-day agreement. That kind of breaks us even. And then after that, you're month to month. So if you decide in month 4, this isn't working out, then there's no cancellation fee. What's the retention like right now? Like what's the, I'm sure you've got some form of data, like how many people stay using the service? Yeah, at 90 days, we're at like a 98% retention rate. At 6 months, it's closer to 90. And then at 1 year, it goes down to like 75 to 80%. But it's more, that's the retention rate of them either leaving the company or replacing their VP. So that includes both. Right. Well, it's not necessarily they're
those
not
are
clients anymore. It's that they may have replaced their first VP. So that's more of our recruiting scorecard, if that makes sense.
I mean,
that we
yeah, and that's pretty high retention. I mean, it sounds like you guys have thought, through a lot of the things that we kind of briefly talked about, where some of the people that I worked with have had a bad experience. Because I mean, some people have had bad experiences bringing on VAs from the Philippines, and so they're deterred by it, and so they're looking for this unicorn in North America, and I mean, they're going to pay significantly more, and there are other firms that we work with as well that have North American based VAs, but I think like the price is different. The price is significantly different, and I can tell you right now that like I've been working with Nica almost a year, maybe a year, I don't know how long. Almost a year. Yeah. She's freaking incredible. One of the best virtual assistants I've ever worked with. Shows up every time, on time, thorough communication, great product, great deliverables, exceeds my expectation regularly. And that just has not happened with all VAs, because I've also had the other ones that have let me down. I've had those $4 or $6 an hour VAs that pick and choose when they're going to answer their phone, pick and choose when they're going to do things, and it's really hard to structure a business around that. I like the part that you had mentioned where we're guaranteeing that they're only working for you. If it's full time with you, it's full time with you, and I think that is important, because like I was talking to this one girl probably around the time that we started working together. She was a VA. She reached out to me. So I get DM'd by people all the time, random shit all the time. Sometimes I open it, sometimes I talk to them, see what they got. Depends on the time of season where I'm at in business. Yeah. And so I scheduled a call with this girl, and she's like, yeah, this is how much my service is. I work with you full time. I was like, oh, okay. Like, how many people are you working with full time? Because it looks like you're set up. Like, she was set up. I was like, it looks like you're set up. So you're not working for anyone right now. Well, no, I have 3 other clients. I'm like, so I'm going to be your 4th client, and you're going to work full time with 4 clients? How? Like, how is it even possible? And I think the other part to that is like, when we talk about, your unique genius or your superpower or whatever.
Zone genius.
When you're doing something every day, every week, every month, consistently back to back to back to back to back, that becomes your new refined skill. I've been coaching for 2 years. I think I'm really good at it now. I think it was pretty good when I started, but I'm really good at it now. Yeah. And it's only because this is all I'm doing. Right. But if I was a VA and I worked for me, and then I worked for, a mortgage specialist, and then I worked for a real estate professional, and then I also worked for a media company, and I had all these different, companies that I was working for. There is no capable way of you being really good at anything, because your time is just being spread across all these different companies, and they're not actually getting any value either.
Yeah. And time is a construct, right? It's more the mental energy you're putting out. Because trust me, in consulting, that's what I feel like sometimes, right? I would literally, my brain would check out at 6, 7 o'clock at night, and I would not be able to continue solving problems. You know how you kind of have your subconscious is always solving problems for your business? And that's, I would just check out. And then 8 a.m. the next morning, 7 a.m., I'm checked back in and I'm dialed. You know what I mean? That's why I could only take on, maybe 4 builds at one time. But, when you think about an employee-employer relationship in general. And I know VAs or VPs aren't employees. They're contractors most of the time, or you hire a company that contracts them. When you think about being dedicated and being part of the company culture, that can only happen with one company at a time, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it has to be one company. I like that. I think that creates, a really unique differentiator. I don't know if other virtual assistant, companies are doing that. It's never come up, but I think it adds a lot of value. Like, I think there's just so much value in that. Think about it. If you're listening to this and you think, if you're thinking about bringing on a VA, if that VA is doing multiple different businesses, working for multiple different businesses, and they're doing one specific type of task for you, right? But they're doing one other specific type of task for somebody else, how are they ever going to improve? Because like, you want the employee, the person, the VA, anyone that's working in your ecosystem, you want them to have the conscious awareness that a system needs an adjustment, right? Something isn't working, so we make a minor adjustment. And if that person is like disconnected and thinking about 4 or 5 different businesses, they don't have the bandwidth to be like, oh, if I make this small change, it will improve my ability of executing this. And I think that happens probably naturally when your team, when your VAs or your VPs are working with clients, because they're only working with them. And I think that gives them, a unique upper hand on everything.
It's not a paycheck anymore. It's a purpose.
Yeah.
We can't help it. We can't help it. We meet with these people enough. We interact with them. We learn about their families. We learn about their hobbies. We learn about what they're into. Then their employment with us becomes a purpose, and our employment with them becomes a purpose. You know, it's not just a paycheck anymore. It's like, I don't want to optimize this system because I can make more money. I want to optimize this system because I know that it affects everybody in this company, and they become like my offsite family in a sense. You know, that's the only way to say it. Like, they've become my quasi family, you know?
What's up, guys? I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Onsite Podcast. So here's the deal. We want to grow this show and we need your help. It's simple. Pay the tax, share the show. That's it. Let's get back into it.
Working virtually for the past couple of years, you know, going from an in-person position, managing hundreds of people, and then going virtual and having just this unique like tribe of like, you know, our relationship started, you know, a long time ago. And like, I mean, I don't know how many times we've had the pleasure of speaking together, but it's regularly enough to the point where it's like, you know, I could have you at my dinner table and I'm sure you could have me at yours. I mean, you're a much better barbecue guy. I've been able to watch your stories and you're I mean, I'm pretty good. I think we could have some fun. I think we could have some fun with that.
Oh yeah.
No, but I think it's really unique because, like, you know, have I met Nica? No. Would I love to? Yeah, absolutely. You know, because she's made such an impact.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time, and you got to understand that, and it's tough for me because I know she's listening, you know, but it's like I don't like talking about people when they're listening, but she knows how I feel about her, and so when she came into the company, you know, it was tough in the beginning, you know, because I had never worked with a VA before, and I had my preconceived notions, and I'm sure she had hers with other US employers and stuff like that. And so it took us a while to get a flow going. But once I realized that I could just give her something and then she would SOP it and she would make it better and create systems to make it work, like that became the ultimate leverage, you know?
I think time kind of creates that too. Like, you know, over like 6 months and you start to really identify people's characteristics. They're like, they're, you know, they're just their natural natures. Even in relationships, you know, you can learn a lot within 6 months of being with someone. And I think a lot of people like fast track into things and they're like, oh, it's perfect forever. Well, no, give it a couple more months. Give it a couple more months and other things will start to identify itself. Same thing with VAs. And that's what I've learned is like 6 months tells me a lot. Could I do my business without Nica? No. Would I want to? No, I probably would just not do this, you know? And so that's the impact that exists. It's like, when you depend so much on someone, it's a really good thing to depend on someone. It's really empowering to be a part of, you know, the impact. It also is beneficial for them as well. You know, you know, I don't know too much about the Philippines, but I know that, you know, their economies, I don't know anything about it, but I know that the cash value is significantly different.
Yeah, the dollar, the US dollar goes a lot further for sure. And so when you look at somebody like Nica, the equation that I always do is 4 to 1 or 5 to 1, right? Now she knows the actual conversion rate and she'll correct me on that if I'm wrong. And we can put it in the show notes later, just as to have a little fun with it. But it is cool to be part of that impact. Because when me and her first started together, I think she was at like $250 a week, you know, and over the past 4 years, up until the end of last year, because she's doing part-time now, she's mainly just responsible for podcast partners. But up through last year, that number has, you know, pretty much doubled. And to see like her grow and be able to handle more stuff. And that's the thing too, is like development is not just you creating a new system and then teaching somebody else how to do it. Development is you trusting them with the system and them growing into it. Because there's been plenty of uncomfortable conversations that me and her have had where it's like, I could step in and help her and probably make it easy. You know what I mean? But I didn't several times on purpose. And then she grew into the roles. Like, you know, Podcast Partners is the company that does the production, editing, distribution, and social media for the Onsite podcast. But at the end of the day, it's Nica running that company. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And that is a testament to her growth over the last 4 years.
No, she's doing a great job. We were actually just talking about that.
Yeah.
I think it might have been on the podcast. I don't know where this conversation came up, but you know, when things happen, because they happen all the time, right? When things happen, as a business owner, the last thing you want to do is fix the problem yourself. Like you pick up the tool to fix it, or dig in there and just like, oh, let me deal with it. That's the worst thing to do, because that problem will exist in the future and it will be the exact same problem and you'll have to resolve it again.
You become part of the SOP.
Yeah.
You are now part of the SOP. So do you want to be tied to that forever? I don't think so.
Yeah, go message the owner and tell him to get his ass down here and have a quick little panic attack, throw his coffee and, freak out and do all that kind of shit. So no, I think it's really impactful to have, a really good VA to support you in your business. And, Nica's been a huge impact with the Onsite Podcast. Doug, if anybody's looking to hire a VP for the construction company, how does that process look? And where do they go to do this?
Yeah, so it's just a discovery call with me, and we can link the discovery call link in the show notes, or you can go to txbizdad.com. That's txbizdad.com. Obviously, you can connect with me on my Instagram as well as Facebook, and all of those handles are /txbizdad. And so that'll bring up my link tree. And then you're going to be able to see the discovery call right there, or check out the show notes on this podcast. And we can.
Awesome. Well,
I also have a one-on-one on there. If you just want to network and, you and I can chop it up and we can exchange some value, that works too. So there's a one-on-one on my link tree as well.
All right. So anybody, if you're listening and you're a contractor, service-based, whatever, you're an entrepreneur and you're like, fuck, I want to grow my business, right? Employ a VA or a VP. Nica has been a game changer for my business. And if you want to start a podcast, reach out to Doug, talk to Doug. The Onsite Podcast is posted across all platforms. I'm going to probably fumble this, but we're on Spotify, Apple Play, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram.
There's a ton of them. And
Amazon?
You're also on, Amazon. You're also on Indian platforms. You're on South American platforms. Like if you look at the report that we send out to you once a month, it'll have little dots everywhere that your downloads have been done. And you're going to see it.
Yeah, actually, we did. We just actually went through that. We just went through that. So if you're listening to this, I'm going to shout out some cities. It's crazy. It is honestly, it's mind-boggling how many people are listening to this podcast and from where. Like Chicago, regular listeners, like back to back, listening to every episode. So thank you for supporting the podcast. Make sure to share it. Make sure to share the show, because it helps other people. So here we go. We got the podcast listeners. We are literally everywhere. California, Illinois, Texas, Virginia, Washington, Idaho, Indiana, New York, Utah, Minnesota, Alabama, Arizona, New Jersey, Georgia, North Carolina, like literally everywhere.
Sounds like every state's
Canada
in the US.
We got pretty much all of Canada, all the United States, Canada, Brazil, UK, Philippines, Finland, India, Singapore. It's just crazy. And we're on episode, I guess, 43. This is our 43rd episode. I remember when you and I were talking about doing the first episode, you're like, yeah, you're just going to do a solo podcast. I don't even remember. I just literally rambled. I don't know what I was even talking about. But to look at it now and think, holy shit, like we're listened in almost every country.
You have grown so much as a host. Like you're such a better host than you used to be.
I love it.
I remember like your first few guest episodes. I was like, Brandon, you gotta let you were so excited to like impart your knowledge. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so like I gave you a hard time. I was like, hey, start running the stats if you can. How much time are they talking and how much time are you talking? It should be 70-30. You know what I mean? But you're nailing that now. So
no, man, we have had such great episodes. I'm really excited about an episode that's about to air. I think it would have aired prior to this, or just around, like just before this, where we had Brendan, our ads strategist, on the call.
Oh, nice.
And we called in some of his clients. So I just literally picked up my phone and I was like, hey, we're gonna, like, you working for this guy? You working with whoever giving him ads? Let's call him.
Yeah.
And I was like, how's the service? Literally on the podcast live. It was great. Yeah, on the spot. And he's like, oh shit, I'm on the spot now. No, but it's fun. And I really enjoy this. And again, like, if you're listening to this podcast, the person who's bringing it all together is Nica. She's in the background, so you can give her a little wave. You can throw her name in the comments and just say thanks, Nica, for putting together such a great podcast.
Yeah.
But if you're looking to hire a exceptional virtual assistant, reach out to Doug from HireVP. We're going to bring him back in the community. We're going to get him on some calls, run some webinars, and get these products rolling, because I really think that if you're a contractor, the first person you want to hire is a VA. somebody to help you organize your life, because you probably suck at organizing your calendar. And if you don't have a full calendar, you don't have any business. Doug, anything else you want to share with us to wrap this up?
No, that's it. Just want to thank you for having me on. It's been cool to see your journey and your growth and some of the amazing things coming up for you. I'm very excited for you and Onsite and the whole Elite Builder Society.
Awesome, brother. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Until next time, see y'all. All right, that concludes this episode of the Onsite Podcast. Remember, if you enjoyed this episode, please pay the tax, share the show. Guys, if you want to be a part of the Elite Builder Society, all you got to do is pay $49 a month. That's it. $49 a month. You get 20 group coaching calls every month. Okay? Go to ebsworks.com and register today. If you enjoyed the show, please pay the tax and share the show.